Hello again, folks, and welcome to week 2 of March of the Combiners. You gotta pause every time, that's the rule. And this week, we're looking into what started this completely carefree crusade of Combiners. Combiner Wars. If you want to see where the path of generations that we're still taking today started, I don't think there's a better point to look at than Combiner Wars. Other generations' toy lines before Combiner Wars were caught in between still having to appeal towards kids and collectors. And on top of that, the quality heavily varied unfortunately, and even some otherwise fun lines like Thrilling 30 suffered from some heavy quality issues. But Combiner Wars, it was mostly about the collectors. It's the ultimate fan wanking idea. What if everything was a combiner? What if Optimus was a combiner? What if Skylynx was a combiner? What if Megatron— oh, never mind. All culminating in big expensive robots spread across 2 years, and it was insanely popular. We saw big names, more obscure names, new characters, iconic characters turned into combiners. They were big, grand, samey feeling, badly made, kind of weirdly proportioned. More on that later. And today we're going to take a big name from the time period and square him off against a more modern reimagining from 10 years later. Welcome to Figure Freak Off, featuring Menasor versus Menasor. Now before we dive into the toys, let's give a quick introduction to Menasor himself, who was one of many combiners introduced to Transformers in Season 2, and in comparison to a lot of his comrades, was a lot more mentally unstable. He was kind of a last resort combiner, only being unleashed when the need be. The team that formed him were the Stunticons, who were all themed around race and sports cars, except their leader for some reason, who was a semi-truck. Ah well, maybe he still competes in races. We definitely know big rigs racing is a thing. The team consisted of Motormaster, their leader and dark counterpart of Optimus Prime, a good dark counterpart, Breakdown, a nervous wreck who for some reason was made Scout, the egotistical Drag Strip, the ever-violent Wild Rider, and a ever-suicidal and depressed Dead End.
I am Dead End. I guess I'll have to do what you say. Face it, we're doomed. What does it matter if I meet my fate now, or when my circuits fail?
He might be my favorite. And impressively for a Combiners team, I can actually name several of the members, whereas most Combiners teams, I struggle to name interesting things about 2 normally, even if I more so know Breakdown and Earthspark for his surprisingly compelling friend turned rival to Bumblebee, only for that to get ruined come Season 2. Now for today's video, we're going to be squaring off both the Combiner Wars and Legacy team of Stunticons, and their combined forms against each other. But what about the Magic Square version or an upscale of it? That's the best one. I like having kidneys. I'm not going to go super in-depth on all of them because we have like 12 robots to cover in total, but it's going to be an interesting showdown because both sides have had their share of controversies and praises over the years. Team Combiner Wars are going to be using the Unite Warriors version, which makes it more cartoon accurate and thus a better comparison. But enough talk, let's begin. Hey, sorry for the interruption, but have you subscribed yet? Well, why not? Because not everyone who watches this video may be subscribed. I upload new videos weekly alongside other shorts and live streams, so hit subscribe and hit the bell for updates on new videos. Once I hit 7,500 subscribers, I'm planning a big retrospective on Metroplex, so that's something to get excited for. Also, consider becoming a channel member. Your financial support goes into making these videos and would be a massive help. Thank you so much. Now back to the video. Breakdown! So we'll start this off with Breakdown, and I will say, I do think it's kind of funny how with the whole debate about the shrinking of Transformers toys lately, how 10 years later, these two are roughly the same size. Must be said though, CW McBreakdown here is definitely the messier bot. He's got a lot of bits hanging off of him from the sides of his car doors to the junk over his hands, so no wrist turning. A severely unsightly backpack, and well, he's got no calves. A bit of an issue. And the plastic quality does not feel the best. It feels a little bit cheaper than I'd like, which considering this thing is going to form part of a bigger robot, it's a bit of a problem. Legacy Breakdown by comparison has been quite tidied up. He's a lot more clean and under control with less obvious jaggy bits, better anatomy, and a much better head sculpt with rather nice looking yellow eyes. The backpack is more visible but also looks a lot better, so you'd think this would be an easy victory for Legacy, right? Well, hold on just one f***ing second, you impatient twit. The CW version has some much nicer articulation in parts, with ball joints on the elbow allowing for swiveling, and a ball-jointed head. While Legacy does have ankle pivots, the arms are noticeably worse, and there are some bits where the joints have a weird semi-ratchet feel to them, which does limit articulation. You can still work with them, but CW version I think does edge out a little in some areas. I still think Legacy is overall nicer though. Transformations are simple enough car formers and do a good job of tidying everything up, and both cars do work out rather well as little sci-fi versions of a Lamborghini Countach? It's one of those, I swear. Though that spoiler on the CW version leaves a lot to be desired, as does the yellowing, but hey, old toy. Though Combiner Wars Breakdown does have one big advantage over the Legacy one. He wasn't scalped to hell and back. Wild Rider! In comparison to CW Breakdown, Wild Rider I think works a lot better in this robot form. The anatomy is way better, less kibbly bits, and he has actual calves. And the head sculpt looks really damn good. He just hates you. No bones about it. Only problem I have really is the color they chose. For some reason, all these figures hated the color black in a lot of ways, so Wild Rider is more of a gray, which doesn't quite work. Legacy, meanwhile, looks a lot sharper with a deeper black and looks a lot more cleaned up. Shout out to the ridging on his abs that you could probably grate cheese off of. The face has been adjusted to a more pouty expression, which isn't bad, but I do prefer the other one. And the backpack looks a lot more exploded this time. I kinda dig it weirdly, but it is less polished looking than CW. Transformation is still pretty smooth and simple. No complaints here. I guess the only complaint I have is Wild Rider being a redeco of Breakdown. Like, come on guys, these things get pricey. At least have a bit more differences than just spoiler placement. CW Wild Rider would have earned more points for being a different sculpt, but it's just a resculpt of Dead End, so never mind. Though in that regards, I do prefer Legacy just because at least the fact they only had so many vehicles wasn't part of the friggin' advertisement! Why do people like Combiner Wars again? Dead End, Dead End, Dead End, Dead End, Dead End. Now to my favorite lad with Dead End, and I gotta say, I think Wild Rider uses Dead End's body better than Dead End does. There are some parts I like, such as the head sculpt and the gold highlights on the inside of his body, but it's too much gray and this weird maroon color doesn't really fit Dead End for me. Whereas the Legacy version absolutely nails it. The colors here are on point, proper red, black, and silver, though I do wish we had some of those golden highlights. Maybe keep that in future Dead Ends, please. Articulation is also much better on Dead End than his CW counterpart, which feels a lot more limited in comparison, whereas it's a lot smoother here. Elbows are still rather limited, but then again, so is the CW version. Legacy clears in all honesty. Like, I love it so much that I might just get another so I have him in a non-combined form. You may not love yourself, Dead End, but I love you. Legacy Dead End's transformation is a lot more complicated than on first glance. Like, there's a lot more going on as you saw in the video. But thankfully it's all in fun and inventive aha ways and not a why is this so annoying kind of way. And this car for Legacy Dead End is so clean and crisp. It all packs up tight, the colors are gorgeous, I love the stripe and even the bottom. I gotta give credit for. The Charmin Bears don't have bottoms as clean as this. CW Dead End though, blech. The maroon looks ugly, it doesn't really look like a Porsche, and where's the stripe? Where's the stripe? Drag strip! CW Drag Strip is a bit off because he doesn't look like the rest of his team. With his long limbs and lots of angles, he kind of looks more like an animated character. And that chest, boring. Where's the engine of the original or the Lego brick of the cartoon? And the rest of it just looks so ugly. Ugly face, ugly shoulders, ugly backpack. Legacy does improve on this somewhat, though still has some ugly kibbly bits here and there. Also, for some reason, the Legacy one is a bit rattly at the waist pivot. Feels like it's on a ball joint for some reason. RuPaul's drag strip doesn't suffer from that, but instead has a penis pivot. Why not? CW's drag strip transformation is pretty baby mode level stuff. With some shunking and some pressing down, it's done pretty quick. Whereas Legacy has a bit more going on and the result is a lot more animation accurate. And I do love how his head becomes a seat. That's really fun. And shout out to the smoothest bottom I've ever seen on a Transformer. And you know me, I usually don't care about bottoms. I'm more of a breast man. CW's dragster, meanwhile, you call that a spoiler? That's just rough. Motormaster. And finally, that leaves us with two Motormasters, which, Let's start with Legacy first. So Legacy Motormaster here has gotten a lot of love online, winning Transformers Toy of the Year a little while back. And that's always been surprising to me. He's even a bit shorter than a lot of leaders. But in my hands, I get it now. This thing looks fantastic. Accurate to the cartoon, but adding some nice twist to it. I can even tolerate the crazy boots. They're his thing, man. And he is rocking them. It feels fantastic. Everything moves so smoothly. The plastic feels great. The posability is fantastic. With so many joints and pivots everywhere, including double knees, this thing is an absolute blast. And that's not getting into his colossal trailer that feels like a tank and can turn into a battle base alongside Menasor's body. But I didn't transform it because, lol, a Combiner Wars Motormaster? He's based on the already widely mocked Combiner Wars Optimus body. He looks more akin to a hulking brute. The colors are butt ugly with a gray that's more akin to a dark brown with the actual colors he's supposed to be used for his truck front on his back. The face is hideous, looking like a habitual lemon sucker. And while the articulation is alright and even includes some butterflying joints, something about them feels off. Like, he feels a lot cheaper than he should be. Not helping matters is apparently the Unite Warriors version may have some quality control issues in terms of the ugly brown plastic, which suffers some of the old gold plastic syndrome. The last confirmed case too. The idea of a combiner suffering from GPS is terrifying in so many ways. All the other ones were at least something of a competition, but this is an utter curb stompage. The only real advantage is that CW is a bit taller, and that's it. It's still really unfitting for Motormaster and showed a big problem with Combiner Wars. If there was one mold that sucked, the rest of the remolds usually sucked with it. And considering Combiner Wars, some molds were reused up to 8 times in just Combiner Wars, and that's not even including Takara's version of Combiner Wars, that's inexcusable. transformation for CW is simple enough and pretty easy to figure out without a manual, so that's appreciated. Legacy, as you'd imagine, is a lot more complicated, so keep the manual on standby. And while the end result as a vehicle isn't the worst, there's something off about it. It kinda gives me an Armada feel. It's so rounded and with so many robot bits hanging off. So it's no surprise Legacy clears it. There is some cheating in the transformation with fake grill parts, but the results speak for themselves. It's kind of impressive how in a franchise with the flat-nosed truck, they somehow managed to make one that stands on its own. Kudos. Like, this feels like something that would run down some kids. So that's the teams. Overall, I'd say the Limb teams are a bit more on equal fighting ground, while Legacy is easily winning with their leader. But now it's time to combine. Just gotta grab all the parts forming pieces. The trailer doesn't count. The combination sequences are both good, but in different ways. Combiner Wars is pretty simple, a lot of it you can figure out without a manual. Legacy's transformation, as you can tell, however, is a lot more involved with the whole trailer becoming the arms, and the cars attaching to the limbs. And this gets into the controversy with this figure. Legacy Menasor is what fans have dubbed a skeleton combiner, where rather than the robots forming limbs, the other robots get inserted into slots and break apart. A lot of fans call foul at this, saying this technically isn't a true combiner like a lot of Combiner Wars figures. In fact, the debate was reignited with the reveal of Superion recently. So let's have a look at the true combiner with Combiner Wars Menasor, and you know those kind of hipster burger bars with annoying sweary names that advertise the fact they have real food and hype up the fact they have a brioche bun, only for the food itself to be absolutely crap? Well, this thing, let's start with the positives. I love the head sculpt. It's a perpetually screaming mug. It's on a ball joint too. And being a Scramble City type build, you can swap around the limbs, which not a lot of people will really utilize. And look, this thing is an absolute mess and represents all the problems with Combiner Wars. Almost all of the combiners in Combiner Wars have this bizarre, squished, overly busy look to them that, for the most part, just look awful to me. The only exceptions to me being Victorion and a redeco with Megatronia, and Devastator, who doesn't have to deal with the rest of the line's gimmick. Like I said before as well, the torso being a reworking of the Ultra Prime torso really hurts this thing. Look at the legs to body ratio. It's like that joke from Family Guy about Peter's cousin. The head is balancing on a beam, the colors are poorly balanced, There's so much just hanging off of it, and the gaps in the arms looks just so ugly. Even the fists from Motormaster are exposed. His finger articulation is useless, not that it can do much anyways, because it has to double as a foot, meaning it can't go out far. And that's not even getting into the worst bit. Like I hinted at earlier, the quality control during Combiner Wars wasn't great, even on Big Boy Devastator. And that didn't just extend to the plastic quality, but the joints as well. Menasor here is full of ratchet joints, which I think we all know how they work, right? Rich plastic that locks into place as you move it about, and you get that signature click. And you know I'm a sucker for that. But during Combiner Wars, the ratchet joints were these overly bouncy, awful feeling things that shook the whole figure as they move. And combined with the weak friction points and ball joints, this thing feels insanely loose as you try to pose it. But weirdly, some ratchet joints here are so loose, they feel like a friction joint, so they don't hold anything. Or some are so limited, there's only so many positions they can hold. And it's a shame because there could have been some decent articulation here, including a waist pivot, which is something I can't say Superion has, but you can't enjoy any of them because this guy is so weak. Anytime you try to pose him, something will detach, or just give up. This is a figure so badly thought out that the parts that look like their shoulder joints aren't, but are so loose they kind of become them. I just don't like the feel of a lot of the Combiner Wars era combiners. And Menasor here has a lot of the worst elements. And there's something really crass to me about the fact that so many of the figures during this run, due to the constant reuse and the fact they had to stick to the exact same 5-team combiner formula, they just all feel so similar. Even that Superion mold everybody loves still has a ton of the issues that this guy has. Some of the later figures of this style did improve a lot of these problems, but those were well after the fact, and again, this is the improved version. The United Warriors version includes all sorts of fixes to try and mend this thing. Where are they?
What about upgrade kits?
You shouldn't need an upgrade kit to make a figure good. Ugh! Because it's just so funny to me because in comparison, Legacy Menasor feels heavenly. For one, he's taller, already a great start, but he looks a lot more show accurate with a lot of nice details to keep him from getting boring. He poses like a dream with way better articulation, not including the hand. These are upgrade kit hands put on by whoever sold me this on eBay. Same with the sword. I didn't want the upgrade kit, but hey, these are great hands and an improved sword. There's just so much more room to breathe with this thing, so much more to pose, and the combination sequence hence isn't traditional. But screw tradition, this thing is stable. There's just a lot more you can do here compared to the Combiner Wars variant. It shows that yes, some things can be simplified, but that doesn't mean we can't have fun.
But the legs are wrong. The car should be on the outside because the animation model was based on a Mistral 4 toy with Bill Cosby. Jello.
I'm keeping it. First of all, that's flat out wrong. Manual scans of the original Japanese toys disprove that. Second of all, who cares? You want those legs so badly? Rotate them to yourself. So even though it was a close fight with the individual robots, apart from Motormaster, in the end, Legacy wins for me. It's a lot more posable, looks way better, feels way better, and is just fantastic. I also like how it's a big size for a combiner, but not overly big. Like, it's got me really hopeful for the Superion combiner of this style, giving enough room to feel huge and have full posing while not being a logistics nightmare. Still excited for the traditional combiners coming too. Combiner Wars Menasor, meanwhile, is just a clunky mess. I do still love that head sculpt though, he looks perpetually offended. Maybe he's the guy who rants about Superion's legs online. But that's just me, I'd love to hear your opinions, guys. Which Menasor do you think is best? And is there one besides these two you think is a worthy contender? We all know it's gonna be Magic Square, let's face it. Let me know in the comments and please subscribe.